Okay, our next speaker is, and we've got the Brimblecombe's and the Kahls here are both Queensland and New South Wales families that founded the cotton industry. And James Kahl's father, Paul Kahl, was a very famous farmer, came out from California in I think 61 or 2 and grew their first crop at Wee Waa. And James has carried that through, and he's now chairman of the Cottonseed Distributors Limited, and they're the ones that are supplying the cotton industry in Australia. And pretty well half the improvement in yield in Australia is from cotton breeding, and it's a very, very successful program run by the CSIRO and CSD. It is a wonderfully successful program. So James, please welcome James Kahl.
So g'day, I am James Kahl, and I will say, as Mike just pointed out, that I was born in California, so I can bag out on Yanks all I like. I've got the licence. And the other thing that I have noticed in my years of travelling back and forth is that the Northern Hemisphere do not suffer from this debilitating disease we have in Australia called tall poppy syndrome. So, excuse me, because I don't suffer from that either, and I'm pretty proud of what the cotton industry's managed to achieve, and I'm going to rely on that a fair bit today in experience and evidence of what we can all do in taking up technology today. So that's probably about all I've got to say about me. We do have in the cotton industry, the basis of it was was in fact foreign investment. So it's a good thing that Australia, in those days at least, was not terribly concerned, because the Americans that came out and helped pioneer the cotton industry that we have today would not have been here otherwise. So keep that in perspective. The breeding program is a fantastic model of research and development agencies, government-supplied funding, mixing it up with commercial enterprise. And we put that really together in a joint venture in the late 1900s, in 1990s, sorry, I've gone back too far, it's about 2006. I just put 10 years on myself, Mike. In about 2006, we put that into a joint venture. One, because the industry didn't want to lose access to that breeding program, and fundamentally when you've got governments talking about cutting funding all the time, you start to worry that your program might be next, and they might be looking for the biggest, fattest check from anybody in the world that wants to buy it. So we secured that in a joint venture. So now that whole exercise is a joint venture 50-50 of the outcomes that come out of it. CSD commercialised all that product. The whole world wants it. It's the best in the world, and we know it, and the whole world knows it, and that's how we know it. So rather than prevent them, we're selling it to them. And it's all managed so that half those yields of royalties and income streams from that go back to CRDC. Go back to... That was... go back to CSIRO. And so that the whole program is becoming self-funding. It's a great model. CSIRO hold it up as the model of choice, and they're trying to drive CSIRO in that direction. So Larry Marshall, the head of CSIRO these days, needs people to get off his back and get along and walk beside him, because he is trying to take the likes of climate change away from simply pontificating about models and creating outcomes. And that's what CSIRO wants to do, and we need to get behind that. So we've got a great model in cotton, and what that does, it attracts, because of that research and development and innovation, it attracts more. Right now we've got, the cotton plant is extraordinarily difficult, and most plants have a genome that you can map, and the world's getting really good at doing that stuff. The cotton plant has 2 genomes. It's got an A and a B, and everyone's got the A. No one really has a good B map, and we've got one. So that kind of work just attracts more people wanting to deliver their technology, their innovation into an industry that has already got a track record of going that way. It's a great place to operate in. So as evidence of that, right now there's a company called Accenture, who is a worldwide company. They work with big multinationals, the BHPs of the world in mining. They work with the big 4 accounting firms. They work with the food chains, the likes of McDonald's. They are producing data sets that help collect the information. They analyse it. Their software produces a statement of results, and it actually gives you the prescriptions to go and deal with it. They've done that in nearly every other industry in the world, and they decided last year it was time they attacked agriculture. And where did they go when they got permission to do that from their finance support? They went to Australia. And then when they got to Australia, they particularly focused on the cotton industry because they were looking for a country and an industry that was going to best serve their fast tracking what they're trying to achieve. That program's going into a pilot program this summer in cotton, and we'll be testing drone imaging of tiny little cotton plants in a couple of months' time to help determine the population rate across the whole paddock in small pixels so that we can easily determine instantly whether we need to replant or not. One of the worst decisions a cotton farmer ever makes, and now it's going to be done for him. There's another company called Climate Corp who are also in this space, and there's a big race on for the big data sets to provide software so that we can all have that whole package that works. And they're in the same race. And they've got in their package, everyone's got a moisture probe, right? You all know what that is. A lot of you use it. They've got a probe that is moisture, temperature, and nitrates. Real-time delivery of that data back to your office. How cool is that? That prototype is going to take 2 or 3 years to develop. We've enticed them to come to Australia, and we're going to help them test that in the field this summer so that they've got Australian summer, US summer, Australian summer. Instead of taking 3 years, it's going to be out and available, probably commercially in about 18 months to 2 years. That's what being up and forward about adopting technology, or at least testing it, is going to bring to Australian agriculture. And it ought to come to all industries. We just got to get up and show our hand. I want to move to, I really wanted to tie innovation in with global activity and industry representation and leadership, because all of those are a package and they really need to be dealt with together. Now, if you were to listen and take to heart the media commentary that leads you to believe that if we're not quick, if Australian agriculture is not quick, we're going to miss out on the global scale. They would lead you to believe then that there are operators in the world that are just way better equipped than we are and way more advanced, and we're going to struggle to keep up and break into that. I want to read this to you because you wouldn't believe it if I told you. You'd think I made it up. Comes out of the New York Times last week. Uzbekistan is one of the major suppliers of cotton to the world supply chain. They are capable of producing at least as much as Australia. This is what the Times said. Zealous workers in Uzbekistan have been promised household appliances if they picked most cotton during the annual harvest. Families who gather 5 tonnes of cotton will be awarded a free television, and while those who exceed 10 tonnes will take home a refrigerator or a washing machine, according to the local media reports. The scheme is centred in the Sudaro region, and it's only for the most hard-working people, so the official said. The most successful pickers who gather more than 15 tonnes will be allowed to jump the queue and buy a locally made car. Cotton is a major export business for that region in Uzbekistan, and the local human rights groups have, I'll get this in the right light here in a minute, human rights groups have been accusing the government of encouraging child labour to get the harvest done. Public sector workers, including teachers and doctors, are also dragooned into taking part. Last year, actors from NBNCo, the state cinema company, were instructed to join in and told they would miss out on casting roles if they did not. They were taken out in a bus and told to pick 30 kilos before lunch or else. The death of their leader came about just recently, about a month ago, and he was the leader since 1989. At that point, it was announced by the within days of taking over, the interim leader of Uzbekistan, has said that if the growers don't perform and get this cotton harvest off in the targeted time, he will jail them. That's a major player on the world stage. India is the second largest cotton producer in the whole wide world, and they have the capacity to be the first by far because they also have about the second lowest yields in the world. And for decades I've been concerned about these guys coming to the table and absolutely smashing the market with oversupply and really putting pressure on the Australian industry. My concerns lessen all the time. You've got the major players in world technology like Monsanto, who just last week completely pulled out of India. Why? Because they could not get a contract honoured. They cannot get them to manage the resistance management for that technology, and they've destroyed it and they've withdrawn, which is a real crying shame because those large companies, whether you hate them or like them, doesn't matter, they are seriously about trying to improve the lot for farmers around the world. And they've just had to walk away from one of the biggest groups in the world because they can't manage the technology. That's a major player on the world stage. What I'm trying to tell you is that it's not such a scary place. And free trade agreements are a lot easier to negotiate, write and take the photo op than they are to manage afterwards. And the World Trade Organization is doing a pretty ordinary job of managing that, so that the likes of China are just getting away with using subsidisation to do what they want. And that's the global stage. It's not scary. They're not all full of great operators. There's plenty of room for us to be better, but we've got to be a little bit careful about knowing who we're dealing with and how we go about it. So you guys are growing into the ag industries of Australia. Success will come from three areas, and they need to be in this order. First of all, look after your own shop. Look after what your enterprise represents, and make sure that you are achieving the greatest return on the resources you've got. There's 5 key ones. You've got land, water, people, finance, and machinery. You need to focus your efforts on getting the greatest return for the most constrained of those 5. And if it changes, change your emphasis. But you need to be doing that. And when you do that and update that with tools of innovation and technology, you're going to absolutely kill it, and then the results will flow. Second, you need a strong industry. And with that foundation, you need to go and get involved in your industry and the leadership of it, also in research, extension, and the adoption of that technology that the industry should be providing. If you've got an industry that's strong already, great, join it. It's an easy street. If it's got problems, join it and fix it. Don't create a parallel, another association and leadership group. The grains industry in Australia are going to be still trying to sort that out in about 5 years from now at least. We've got a big job to do there. So get that right. The critical mass of a unified industry is paramount to your own success, and you're going to have to help drive it. Thirdly, with those 2 in order, you need to keep Australian agriculture placed on the global stage for your generation. As I said, it's not a scary place. And while we seek to understand who the players are, what they're thinking and how they're operating, and then develop our own approach so that we are knowing who the customer is and what he wants. And that's going to drive you right back to getting the highest yields and the highest quality, so that we don't carry the world's stockpiles of product that can't be sold. Ours is first off the shelf. That's where we've got to be. So, in all of that, hasten slowly. Slowly enough to achieve the well-considered outcomes that you need for your enterprise. I look forward to seeing you guys, hearing about you, reading about you, as you approach all those endeavours. Thank you.
We just had a totally different perspective on R&D that we heard yesterday, and there's some R&D that's very, very functional, but it's about connecting with it, and it's about having systems and structures that allow you to connect with it. So what James is trying to explain there is that the cotton industry does have a functional R&D program, and it is, every farmer can really connect with it. And I think other industries struggle with that connectivity. I've been involved in dairy, and it's quite remarkably distant after coming out of cotton. So there's some good models to learn from, and there's some good things to challenge yourselves with. So we've got a